Good evening, everyone, and welcome in. I'm excited to have everyone here tonight. I know there's a lot of, there's some new names, there's some familiar names. Some of you have been on some of my classes before. So I'm very excited about tonight. If you would do me a favor, find the chat box. I know a lot of you are going to be on your phones. Just let me know that you can hear me okay and it's all sounding good. I would hate to start chatting it up and then nobody can actually hear me. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. So um, find that chat box. Let me know how we're sounding. And while you're at it, let me know where you're at. I know everybody in here should be Louisiana. Let me know, are you Lake Charles? Are you Baton Rouge? Are you Lafayette? Where's everybody from? Hey, the one that just said Abbeville, you're listed as iPhone. Can you share your name? What's your name? So we can know who we're talking to. Prairieville, Therese. Hey, Therese, good to have you on. We're gonna get you we'll get you renamed here so we can know. And I promise we'll get started in just a bit. Hey, Emily, thanks for being on. Awesome. Yeah, we've got a good mix across the state tonight, so that's really, really good. I'm very excited about that. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna talk for about 30 to 40 minutes, just kind of go through the quick presentation that I have for you guys, and then I'm gonna do Q&A after this, and you can ask me whatever questions you want. I've got my iPad ready. I can draw out. I can answer whatever we need to answer. But we're gonna go ahead and we're going to jump in just one more minute. I think we got about half of the people that signed up, which is generally how it goes. So I'm very excited about this. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, Patrice is coming in. All right. Well, y'all let me know. Nick, can you see my screen? Are we good? All right.
We're good, ready to go.
Awesome. So tonight, guys, is all about and Nick works with me here at Bayou Mortgage. He's my loan partner, so he's going to help us out tonight as well. So I'm really,
Hello,
really
everyone.
thankful to have him on here to help with questions and stuff like that. So tonight's all going to be about avoiding the hidden costs of buying a home. And so a lot of people, you want to buy a home. Pretty much everybody on this webinar, you guys have taken care of your credit. You're trying to manage your finances well. And I think the biggest thing that, most of you guys are going to be nervous about, a little anxious about, is obviously making the wrong decision because it is an expensive decision. And so what I want to do is I want to unpack all of the costs that are involved in this whole process for you so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And then I'm going to show you a really cool way to get a lot of these costs paid for, as well as, some other neat things along the way. And then again, remember I said, we're going to do Q&A at the end, and I think the Q&A is my favorite part because it allows you to kind of start to get those personalized answers to your problems or to your questions, I should say. So, avoiding the hidden costs of buying a home. Now, listen, before we get started, in the chat, let me know if someone asked you right now how much money you need to buy a home, what would you say? What would you say? Drop it in the chat for me. If I said, "Hey, Jeremiah, how much do you need to buy a home?" Right? Let me know. What would you say? Drop it in the chat. I love participation because it keeps everybody awake and it keeps me from sounding like a college professor. So, I am, for those of you who don't know me, maybe you haven't interacted with me much. I obviously I do mortgages, but I also am a preacher on the side as well. So you should see some of that come out tonight. But I love engagement, right? If you've ever been to church, it's like, hey, I need an amen every once in a while. Let me know I'm doing a good job. So I appreciate that, Jeremiah. Jeremiah says 20. Let me clarify that question for y'all. So what I'm asking is like out of pocket expenses. So these are good, right? Because you're like, hey, I need 200 grand. But the reality is most of us don't have that. That's why you talk to people like me, right? Because you got to get the money from somewhere. What I think is that a lot of people, everybody, you can even raise your hand. most people know about down payment, right? They understand that part of the process. But there's a lot more to the process. Now, if you work with somebody that's good at what they do, they maybe won't make you feel all of that, because I'm going to give you the two numbers that matter when buying a house. So as we go through this, and you start to feel like, oh my goodness, this is more than I thought it was going to be. Towards the end, I'm going to give you the only two numbers you need to pay attention to, that will help you minimize a lot of this. So, first, I want to talk to you and why we're even here tonight. We'll call him Alex. I'm changing his name or their name. But Alex was a first time home buyer, okay? Alex had good credit. Alex was ready to stop renting. So, what did Alex do? Alex went online and he got pre approved with an online lender. It was fast. It took 10 minutes. It was all online. They gave him this nice little document that said, congratulations, you're pre approved, right? Never had to talk to anyone. He was very excited about that because maybe he didn't have time to talk to someone. So he takes that pre approval letter and he finds his first home. Let's say it's $220,000 in Baton Rouge, okay? Maybe Lafayette, maybe Lake Charles. You know, we got people from all over. Um, and then he paid because this online lender charged a $500 deposit. He committed to them, and went forward. He did everything right and he was almost there. But then he got a call from that lender that said, hey, Alex, sorry to have to tell you this, but it's going to cost you $9,400 more than we quoted you. Okay. Now, this is a real life story, and I get these stories on the regular. Okay. Especially because we're big online. And so people are reaching out to us when they work with these folks, and this kind of things ends up happening. And so the online lender, 11 days before closing, calls him and tells him that he needs a bunch of extra money in order to be able to purchase a home. Hey, Nick, as you see people like hit that waiting room, would you admit them for me, please? Because once I get rolling, I'm going to forget.
Absolutely.
So he saved money for the down payment, but he wasn't prepared for that. He had to scramble. He was trying to borrow money from family. He missed his move-in date. And then he spent months wondering, could this have been avoided? And then ultimately he reached out to us. And the answer was yes. It could have been avoided, because not only can you know the full cost of buying a home before you actually buy it, but there are a lot of lenders out there that don't charge the extra fees that this lender charged. And we're going to talk about all of that, but that was an avoidable mistake. And so why am I doing this class tonight? It's because I want you guys to have the tools that you need to know that whenever you make that offer, you're making that offer with the understanding of, I have a pretty good idea of how much this is going to cost me, and I'm not going to have these major surprises 2 weeks from closing. Now, sometimes the unexpected happens, but if the work gets done up front, it's very rarely the case that, our goal is always that whatever we quote you, it's less than that when you actually get to closing. And so before we jump into that, there's some things you need to know. And the biggest thing is this. And if you've ever been to one of my first-time homebuyer classes, where we talk about the 5 mistakes, I cover this a little bit, but it takes a team to close a home. It's not as easy as one person. And so that's part of what makes this process a little stressful sometimes, is that it does take a team. So you're trying to, there's this coordination that's happening between all these different players. And so you have a mortgage lender or a broker. That's what I do. You have a real estate agent, right? They're going to help you find the right home. They're going to write offers and negotiate on your behalf. The lender is also the one that's going to, give you the money, because presumably you're here, right? Jeremiah, you don't have $200,000 chilling in the bank. So you need some money if you're going to be able to buy that house. The title company confirms the legal ownership. So what are they doing? They're making sure that the person that says, hey, this is my house and I'm selling it, they're making sure they can legally sell it. They also sell title insurance, which protects you and the lender, from anything that could come up later. And they're making sure that nobody's trying to sue you. There's no judgments against you, that there's nothing that's going to come up for the lender that's going to create problems for them down the road. Then you have the appraiser, right? They're going to go out and make sure that the house is worth what they're charging for it. And it's subjective, but it is an important part of the process. You're going to have a home inspector, right? If you choose to use one, which most everyone should. identify any physical issues with the home before you move forward. You got home insurance, right? Now, if you've been renting, these are things that you're not used to paying. They're built into your rent, but you have home insurance, you have property taxes, you have all of these different things. So there's all these different players, right? That when you buy a house, all of these things are being coordinated. Now, how many of you know that when you buy something, it's not a charity? Right? It's not a nonprofit organization. All of these people run for-profit organizations, so that means that there's going to be costs associated with those things. And so, what we're going to dive into tonight is we're going to dive into the two numbers that matter, but understand that everything that's being disclosed to you and revealed to you is an estimation of the charges from the various parties that are involved. And so, what happens is when you buy a house or when you go to buy a house, there's all sorts of fees, right? There's all sorts of costs. Now, this is the part, listen to me, where I might lose some of you because this is the technical part, but I promise if you stick with me, the rest of it will be worth it. So, but here's the thing. When you buy a house, you have your down payment, which most people know about. If you go with a program that requires one, you have earnest money, right? Maybe the seller wants you to write them a check that the title company holds that says you're very serious about buying this house. You have a home inspection, you have an appraisal fee, you've got title insurance, you've got potentially origination fees depending on the lender you work with. Prepaid interest, right? Homeowners insurance, property taxes, mortgage insurance. Anybody just hearing like cha-ching, 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 right? There's all these different fees that are involved with this. The title company is the attorney settlement fee. If you purchase a home in a flood zone, you're going to have flood insurance. If you buy in an HOA, which I live in an HOA right now, can't say I'll ever do that again. But if you buy in one, you're going to have HOA dues. You're going to have survey fees. Not really in Louisiana. We don't do a lot of survey fees, but if you wanted one, it would be there. And then you could have discount points. And that's actually just some of the charges that are involved. Now, what happens is these are called closing costs. Anybody, let me know in the chat. Have you ever heard of closing costs, or are these things a surprise to you? Let me know. Is it a surprise? Yes or no? Have you heard of this before? I'm going to take a drink of water. All right, so we got to know. We got to know. Anybody heard of closing costs before? Yes, a few of you. No. Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. So here's the cool part, right? Here's the cool part. If you work with a good lender, somebody that actually cares about your finances, maybe not quite the way you do, right? Because nobody's going to care about your money like you. They're going to show you what all of these things cost up front. And you're going to get a document that looks like this. Now, bear with me. I had to like squeeze a 2-page document onto 1 page. But this document is called a loan estimate. And what this document reveals is what that loan is going to cost you. Now, this is a very old sample, okay? This is years old. The interest rates are not 3.875 anymore. If they were, I'd be too busy to even do the class, right? People would be buying houses like crazy, like they were in 2021. So, but it outlines things like your loan amount, your interest rate, your monthly payment, right? It outlines your closing cost and your estimated cash to close. So it's going to break all of those things down. And this is what page 1 of that looks like. And when you are getting a loan, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. When you're getting a loan, because you need a loan to buy a house because you don't have the 200 grand chilling in a bank. These are the documents that you need to understand, because if you don't understand what this document says, then this is where people get taken advantage of. And this is where people just put a lot of faith and trust in their lender, which if you're working with a trustworthy person, great. But a lot of people don't understand how this works. And so right up top, and again, remember, this is the technical part. Bear with me. I'm gonna drill it down to the only 2 numbers you need to pay attention to in just a second. It's going to tell you up here, is your rate locked? Why is that important? Well, let's say that you're shopping 2 or 3 different lenders, If they haven't locked the rate, then it doesn't exist yet. Now, they may still be able to offer that to you, but it isn't set in stone. And a lot of times it can't be set in stone until you actually go under contract. You're going to see your loan amount. This is how much you're borrowing.
We can't see the screen.
Oh, the screen went away?
Yeah, if you were sharing it a second ago, it's not on here. It's just your face.
Oh, okay. What about now?
Nope.
Is Nick the only one that can't see my screen, or can you guys see my screen? Gotta love technology, slowing me down. Let me know in the chat. Can you see my screen? Okay, they can. So I think it's an issue on your end,
maybe
brother.
it's just me.
All right. So where a lot of people get tripped up on this document, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but and then we're going to go on this other side, is they'll see this document, and I know my screen's kind of like cutting it off here at the bottom, but they'll see this document and they'll think that they have to add the closing cost and the estimated cash to close, but you just care about that bottom number. The top number is your closing cost. The bottom number is your closing cost plus your down payment, and it's going to be different on every house. So what I really wanted to show y'all is what that looks like. So when I showed you this right here, okay, all these different charges, this is where they show up right here. So this is really important, okay? So pay attention to this. When you're comparing loan offers and you want to know who's going to give you the better deal as a loan, this box A called origination charges, these are the fees that a lender will charge you to do the loan. This is what happened to Alex, okay? Alex talked to the lender and they said, yeah, Alex, we'll give you, let's just call it a 5.5% interest rate. But what they didn't tell Alex was that that rate was going to cost him $4,000. And then because they weren't local, and when I say local, I mean like they don't understand Louisiana and that we have more expensive costs on some things like insurance, they also vastly underestimated his insurance. And so they put it at $100 a month, but it was $300 a month. And now that's several $1,000s more. And so when the client who just thought he was getting a better deal looked at all of that, he moved forward with them because it looked like he was getting a better deal. But because he didn't understand the costs involved, he didn't know he was signing up for something that was $10,000 more than he could afford. Okay. So you're going to get a document like this from any lender worth their salt. And the only charges that the lender controls are in this first box right here. Now, you may see underwriting fee, you may see processing fee, you may see application fee, you may see points. All of those mean that the lender is charging you those directly. And just so you know, many times that's negotiable, and many times one lender's charges may not be right because a lot of people think that every lender is the same, and they're not. Some lenders are vastly cheaper here than others. In box B, these are like your appraisal fee, your credit report fee. Now let's talk about that credit report fee. So as you can see here on this sample that's from I think 2020 from the CFPB's website, you can see the estimated cost was $30. Just so you guys are aware for when you are ready to kind of dive into this, the cost of a credit report in the last 4 years has gone from $30 to about $140 to $150. So for nothing, like they didn't give us anything extra. So this is one of those costs that has increased. And so because of that, you guys will see if you ever like move forward and try to get pre-approved or something like that, you guys will see that a lot of lenders are now charging upfront instead of charging it to you at the closing. Because you can imagine you do $150 times 40 a month or 50 a month, that cost begins to add up. But I digress. Box C is where you're going to see the title company. So here you have the appraiser that wants to get paid. Here you have the loan officer that wants to get paid. Here you have the title company that wants to get paid. And then in box F, you have the insurance agent that needs to get paid, or the insurance company. It's really F and G. They're going to want to get paid, right? So you kind of have all these different factors going on. Now, what I want you to know about this, because I didn't want this class to be just boring you about numbers, but I need you to see this, is I wanted you to know that box A is negotiable and box F and G is where lenders that aren't located in Louisiana will have you thinking that it's going to cost you less than it actually will, because they're going to vastly underestimate how much that insurance costs. Now, I know that we have a spectrum, right? So we have people from New Orleans to Lake Charles. I didn't see any, I don't think I saw any North Louisiana folks. They get a break on the insurance, so they're doing a little bit better than us. I think we're all South Louisiana tonight, unless somebody pops in and tells me I'm wrong. In South Louisiana, unless it is very rare that you find insurance for less than $2,000 a year, and it is increasingly more like $3,000 a year on average. Okay, so that makes a big difference. It's not just interest rates that have made payments go up and all that stuff. It's also what nobody really talks about, which is the way home insurance has gone up in Louisiana because of Laura, which happened here, and because of Ida, which happened in Houma, Thibodeau, and that whole area. So that has really affected us. But I just wanted you guys to see those numbers. Now, before I move to the next slide, because I know this is like sitting in accounting class, and I'm not trying to bore people. Does anybody have any questions about this part of it that they want to ask? If so, drop it in the chat. Let me know. All right. So remember, I promised that I was going to give you the only two numbers that matter when you're buying a house. There's only two the numbers that matter. Cash to close, which is what is going to leave your bank account when you buy that house on closing day, and your monthly payment. That's it. So we got all these different numbers out there, right? These different fees. All you care about as the buyer is how much do I have to write a check for at closing, and how much do I have to pay every month, right? So you have your monthly budget, you have your one-time budget, which is your cash to close. Cash to close. When you know these numbers, you don't have to guess anymore. So when we say cash to close, and that's part of that form that I just showed you, what we're talking about is your down payment, if you have one, because you can buy a house in Louisiana with no down payment, your closing costs, and your prepaids and escrow. Now, I just say closing cost. I don't separate them because I feel like that's mind games, and it's a little bit manipulative the way that some lenders will say, "Oh, your closing costs are only $3,000," and fail to tell you that your prepaids are $6,000 because of your taxes and your insurance. So we just count it all as one thing, and generally it's going to be between 3 to 5% of the value of the home. On average in Louisiana, your closing costs are going to be, depending on purchase price, if you're 250 or below, between $8,000 to $12,000. If you're over 250, I've seen it, $12,000 to $14,000 in terms of closing costs, especially the closer you get to New Orleans. So I know we had somebody in Marrero. Depending on where you buy in that area, insurance costs can be very inflated, and so that's a big factor. One house could be $3,000 a year, and one house could be $9,000 a year in insurance, and you could see how that would make a really big difference in how much you pay. But when we talk cash to close, this is what we mean. And so this is all based on let's just say a $220,000 home. Okay. 3.5% if you were to go FHA, $7,700 down payment. And then you're going to have, again, closing costs between 8 to 12. And so you have a total cash to close of between $15,000 and $24,000, depending on, how much the insurance and all those different things cost. So that's your cash to close. Now, what if you didn't have to pay those costs? Would that be a big help? I think it would be a big help. I don't know about you guys, but if somebody could show me how to save 10 grand, that's what I would be looking for, right? That's what I would be looking for. And so here's what I'll tell you. One of the greatest benefits of buying today versus buying in 2021 and 22, and I don't know, we might even have, is there anybody in here that tried to buy a house back then? Because it's actually more common as I've done these classes. People, have been shopping for that long. If you tried to buy back then, there were 15 offers on every property. And so you really had to have your money right, because you had to be very, very competitive with your offer. One of the best reasons to buy a house right now is because it is very easy to utilize seller paid concessions. What does that mean? When you make an offer on a home, you can ask the seller to contribute money toward your closing costs, right? So this is completely normal. I think every loan in my pipeline, except one that's an investment loan, has the seller contributing money towards their closing costs. We just got a new contract in today, and they were getting $8,000. The seller credits you for your closing, and your out of pocket drops dramatically. So if you do it right, you can get the seller a lot of times to pay almost all of them. And so, how does it work? Right? Because I know I could see the thought bubbles, right? People are thinking through this. How does this work? You ask for it when you purchase, when you make your offer. That's why it's so important that you know what the costs are going in. Because if you don't know that these costs exist, and a lot of you didn't, when you go to make an offer on a home, you won't know that. And then you're going to end up going under contract and not getting any help when help is out there for you. And so the seller will agree to it as part of the negotiation. The credit appears on your loan estimate or closing disclosure, and you pay less or nothing, right, in your closing cost. And so here's the really cool thing. If you do FHA or USDA, which are the two most common loan programs, and tonight is not about loan programs, but I'm happy to answer questions about loan programs during the Q&A. They can pay up to 6% of the purchase price to your closing costs. So for instance, if you were buying a $220,000 home, you could get up to $13,000 back for closing costs. And if your costs are only 8 to 10,000, that's way more than you need, right? And we see very regularly 8 to 10. It's very common that we see 8 to 10. So that allows you to dramatically reduce the amount of money that you need to be able to buy a home. And the crazy part is, like, if you take something like USDA, I'll just briefly mention this. USDA Rural Development is a loan program that allows you to buy a home with no down payment. And as long as you're not buying in the major city limits of a city that has more than 25,000 people. So that seems like it's only small towns, but basically anything outside of like Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Kenner, Metairie, Bossier City, Shreveport, Alexandria, Monroe, any of the suburbs that are not included in that, you could actually buy a house with no down payment. And if you negotiated for the seller to cover your closing cost, then I literally have clients that buy a house with $1,000, $1,500. So it's really, really, really super beneficial. And in a buyer's market, which is what we're in, it's very achievable. And so you can even offer slightly above asking price to offset the concession. Let's say they want 200, you offer them 205, you get an extra 5. That can be very helpful because it makes such a small difference on your monthly payment. And it works best when you have a strong pre-approval. And so this is one reason that a real game plan matters, is because when you get a game plan and you know what to expect, all of these things are mapped out for you, and you know what you need to offer going in, and you know what homes you need to look at, right? If you find a home, for instance, that's been on the market for a little while, let's say the home's been on the market for a few months, that seller is going to be way more likely to negotiate with you than, you know, the home that's underpriced that just hit the market that everyone's looking at. And so it's just a strategy, but it's a really good strategy. Let me know, was that helpful, or am I losing you guys? It gets easier, and we're not too far from being done. So, is that helpful? Jeremiah asked, is that including the bills as well? So we're actually going to talk about that next, which is your monthly payment. So that's the other number. Awesome. Thank you, Kayla, for letting me know. Thank you. All right, let's jump to the next slide. The other number you need to know, thank you, Trinity, is your monthly payment. Okay. Now, this is why there are two things I want to talk about before I dive into this. There are two deceptive practices that happen when you're shopping for a home that you need to be aware of. One of them is committed by builders more than anyone else, and it's they'll advertise a certain monthly payment. And that monthly payment is very attractive. Let's say that builder has a home that they sell for $220,000 or $200,000, and they'll run an ad that says, get into this home for as low as $1,200 a month. But there will be a little asterisk somewhere on that advertisement. And what that asterisk tells you is that it doesn't include taxes and insurance. Okay. So it makes the payment appear lower than it is. Your mortgage payment is made up of primarily four things, unless you buy in an HOA, and then it's five. Or if you have flood, then it's six or five or six, right? The primary things that it's made up of is principal and interest. Okay. That is the amount of money you pay back to the bank every single month. Okay. This is the largest chunk of your mortgage payment. But you also have property taxes, you have insurance, and if you don't put 20% down, which pretty much no one does, then you could also have mortgage insurance, and that could be. I think this estimate here is a little high. I didn't do the math on it before I ran into this, but what I'm seeing in this price range is between, like, usually about $80 a month. So let me just double check my math there, but yeah, this math's a little off. So, but the point remains: your mortgage payment is more than just the principal and interest, and this is why. How many of you have gone on Zillow, found a house, and then used their like mortgage calculator to try to get an idea of like what that house is going to cost? This is why that often doesn't work. That's the other thing I wanted to tell you guys, because most people don't know how to estimate for the taxes and the insurance. And so you'll see the payments 1,200, but again, the taxes and the insurance are left off. Or they'll assume you have a 800 credit score and you're putting 20% down, which also makes a difference on the payment. So when you're shopping for a home, this is a good thing and a bad thing, right? It's good to know what's in there. It's actually not, it's not a bad thing. It just is what it is that when you tell your lender what your budget is, you're including what you can afford for those property taxes annually, and the insurance. And the good thing about that is that you don't have to remember every year to write a $3,000 check to your insurance company, right? You don't have to remember every year to write a check to your parish for your property taxes. It's part of your mortgage payment. Every month that you pay it, it goes into something called an escrow account. It's basically like a savings account for you that the lender sets up. And then at the end of the year, or whenever your insurance renewal is, which will be the day you bought the house typically, they will make that payment for you. So that's what goes into your mortgage payment. So in this example, a $220,000 home would cost roughly $1,600 a month. Now, what I want you to remember is that every house is different. If you bought a brand new $220,000 house, it could be $100 a month cheaper, right? Because the insurance might be $1,900 a year instead of $3,000 a year. And that's going to make a big difference on your monthly payment. If you buy a really old home south of I-10, right, and it's large, you could have $4,000 a year insurance. So it's home by home specific. So it's really good to get an idea of like what area you really want to be in, so that you can kind of base the numbers based on the area that you want to be in. So that's number two. It's your monthly payment. And so a great strategy for this, and I meant to grab the link and I forgot, is to determine what your comfortable budget is. Right? Now, most of us, at least this has been my experience working with clients, don't have a monthly budget in terms of like, we're not regularly tracking our expenses, right? And things like that. So it can be a very good deal. And I actually have a YouTube video, if anybody's interested, I can share, on just creating a simple, like, here's how much money I make, here's all my bills, so that you can really figure out how much you can afford each month on your mortgage payment. Now, maybe it's your rent, whatever you're paying in rent, that's what you're comfortable with. You don't want to go more than that. That's fine. But setting kind of like a low, medium, high will help you so that if you can be approved, let's say, for more than you want to spend, let's say you look at homes and you get pre-approved for 180 or 200, and you're looking at those homes, but something for 220 pops up and you love it, right? Well, if you've set a hard cap on your budget on I cannot exceed this no matter what, then either I can make that home work or not. And so somebody drop in the chat if you're able to. Let me know, what does that budget look like for you? Have you thought about this? What does it look like for you? What comfortable monthly number have you considered? Take a drink of water here. We're almost done. Thank you. Good to go. All right. Y'all keep dropping that in there. Appreciate that. Good. We got some good numbers in there. Got some good numbers in there. Oh, did I? So, all right. So the two numbers, the whole picture that would have been needed in this scenario, let's call it $20,000 to make it easy. Let's call it $1,600 a month to make it easy. Right? By knowing those two numbers, you would know exactly what your situation is. You would know that, hey, if I don't, if I have $10,000 saved, or I have no $1,000 saved, but I'm going to try USDA, if I don't get $10,000 in seller concessions, or if I don't get all my seller concessions covered, then I'm going to have a cash to close problem. So I need to put special emphasis on homes that are going to give me a great shot at getting all of my closing costs covered, right? That's the power of this. And then when you know what your maximum payment range is, right? Whether it's 1,500 or 1,200 or whatever you guys put, then that's going to help you lock in at only homes that fit that budget, right? That only homes that meet that monthly payment. Because the worst thing in the world is to have a champagne taste on a beer budget, right? And so we don't want to look at $300,000 homes if we can only afford $200,000 homes. They're going to be very different homes. They're going to be in different neighborhoods. They're going to look different. They're going to be different sizes, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, especially as a first-time home buyer. Like, this is not your forever home, right? This is not the likelihood that this is the home that you live in for the rest of your life is very small. The average first-time home buyer stays there 5 to 7 years. So that's okay. So what if Alex had known his numbers first, right? Remember Alex from the beginning of the call? It's a tale of two buyers, right? Alex got approved by an online lender. He never saw the full cost breakdown, paid them a $500 deposit, got blindsided 11 days before closing, had to scramble and borrow money from family, which maybe they said no, missed his move-in date. And then what's also not on there is he wasted money if he ends up not closing because he paid for an appraisal and he paid for a home inspection. How many of you know that would be very stressful, right? So with a game plan, right, that makes all the difference. And so when you do the game plan, you know what your numbers are before making an offer. You know exactly what cash to close is supposed to look like. You know to ask for seller concessions if you need them. And then you can close on time and you don't have so many surprises, right? You can move in on the day you planned. It's already stressful enough, right? You guys already have enough on your plate. You have a job, you have children, you have people that you take care of, you have all these things going on. You should, like most people, trust the professionals that you're working with. So I hope that information was helpful. We're going to transition into Q&A in just a second because that's the real power of these classes is when you guys ask me all of the questions that you have. But I do want to let you know that if there's anybody on the call, and usually they start booking pretty quickly, that you want this kind of game plan for yourself. You saw what we walked through and you want to know, like, hey, what would that look like for me? What would it look like for me, Trinity, to buy a house at $1,500 a month? How much is that going to be my out of pocket, right? I would love to help you with that. And so what I've set up is an easy way for you to set that up with me by going to talkwithbayou.com. Now I want to be clear about this, okay? Because I don't know what everyone's experiences are in talking with the lender. It is a value call. So the call with me is to walk you through what we call the Bayou Blueprint, which is a 60-day home buying guide where we will walk through all of your numbers. You'll know exactly, we're not pulling your credit. We'll know exactly based on what you tell us, what you can afford, what you should reasonably expect that to cost, and what next steps would look like for you. It can be a 20-minute call, it can be a 30-minute call, it can be an hour-long call if you have a lot of questions. I usually cap them at 30 minutes, but um, we will calculate real cash to close plus monthly payment, and you walk away knowing exactly where you stand. Again, I'm not going to pressure you into pulling your credit unless you want to do that. If you want to buy a home soon, that's great. If not, you're going to get a free plan. You're going to know exactly what you need to do, and you know what it really is going to do? It's going to quench a lot of the anxiety that a lot of you feel about buying a house, right? Because the best way to deal with anxiety is to take action. So I dropped the link for that in the chat. You can go to talkwithbayou.com, and then it will allow you to book that call. And look, it'll take you to a really simple page. It's a little page where you can book you schedule the date and the time that works for you. Good? Everybody still good? We here? All right. Let's go to Q&A. What questions do you guys have for me? And again, I'm happy to answer any and all questions. We got that presentation done in about 40 minutes, so we've got a good bit of time. We've got 20, 30 minutes we can sit here and do Q&A if you guys have enough questions. So if you don't, I'll answer some of these more common ones, but I would love some engagement here. Drop in the chat, or even I'll unmute you if you just want to ask it without chatting. You can raise your hand, you can drop it in the chat. How can I help? I know somebody's got a question. Talk to me about that, Jeremiah. When you say bills, what do you mean by that? Can I unmute you and you can share with me? All right, you should see it. There you go.
Hello,
Hey man.
what's up? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Um, I'm doing fine. I was curious about like light, the water, the light water bill, electric. Yeah, that goes with the light.
So
The
more
no
like the utilities and stuff.
utilities. Yes, utilities.
Yeah, so that's not in your mortgage payment. That's you get that, that goes based on, you set that up. We look at mortgage, taxes, insurance, those kinds of things. But when we pre-approve somebody for a home, we pre-approve them based on about 50% of their income, because we assume that the other 50% of your income will go to things like utilities, entertainment, all the stuff that you're living your life on, basically.
Okay. Yeah, because I was looking at a lot of homes, especially like in I stay in rural,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to move to Metairie.
Okay. Yep.
And I was looking at because the job I do, I travel around. I do concrete work. So
Okay.
I was looking at houses like in Bonneville or West Esplanade
Mm-hmm.
or Old Metairie, and like stuff places like that,
Yep.
and near Kenner and all sorts of. So I was just checking. I'm like, man, it's not really too high, but it's like I know it's like a real big down deposit you have to do and a good credit score at that, like 700 to 800. My credit score is at 700,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting it up, and I'm also saving money as well.
What's kind of the price range of the houses you've been seeing in those areas that you like?
Uh, it's like 35, 350,000 on up. I
Yeah.
say 500,000 on up, especially like in the back of West Esplanade, like going to
Yeah,
the
those
back.
are really nice areas.
There's really nice houses. Like
Mm-hmm.
they got El Copeland house. We passed there. It's like somewhere in the back by the levee. And it's like there's a lot of like key areas, like big
Right.
houses, where you have like NBA players stay at or the NFL players stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, that's
seen.
one of those areas too, man. Like I've I had a client looking in Metairie one time and I got an insurance quote for like 15 grand a year. So it's one of those areas where you really have to like pay attention to like the area itself and flood zones and all that stuff because it's one of the more I think it's probably the most expensive area in terms of insurance in the whole state.
Right. Because it's like it's a business district. Like
Yeah.
it's a business. Like Elementary is business. Like that's where they have everything.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
that's why I wanted to move over there because of what I do and what I'm trying to get into, like on the side. So that'd be a good area to make
For
a lot
sure.
of more money. That's why I said I want to be close. Then I'm also close to the city
Yep.
of New Orleans. So that's why I thought it'd be perfect to go stay over there. And I'm close by my job too.
Yeah, for sure, man. Great questions. Great questions.
Yeah, I seen. They had a house though. I was looking on Zillow, and I was looking at like the cost of like what how many bedrooms and bathrooms they got in there, and stairs. I want my house to have stairs, so and a nice view. So
The dream.
yes, a dream. It's
It's
like
awesome, man.
some like really like a good looking starter house outside and inside. Some I could be in for 7 years. I want to stay at my house for 7 years. Mm.
Awesome. Well, hey man, if you want to chat about that more, just pick a time and we'll walk you through whatever you need, kind of give you an idea what that looks like.
I also had a picture of this house. It was so nice. It's like I don't know exactly where. I got a picture of it in my photos, and I also have the address. I get time. I can talk to you. I show it to you.
Yeah, send it to me. Let me see it when you get a chance.
All right. Appreciate that.
Yep. Next question. Hey, Emily, great question. Good things to focus on while buying a house. Obviously the big ones, and I think you probably know this already, but the big ones are maintaining your credit score, paying your bills on time, all of those things. And then I think just getting really locked in is the most. I think this is where most people get tripped up when it takes a little bit longer. Getting really locked in on like what you let me pull up the list here actually because it'll be easier to do it that way. Um, it's mostly about like getting locked in on what you absolutely have to have in a house, right? So I made a little list here because I just did a video on this not that long ago. Well, I can't find it. But yeah, it's getting locked in on like the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves versus the, someday maybe haves. And obviously all that's different depending on what stage you're in and where you're buying and all those things. But, like for me, location would be the most important thing because no matter what, I can't move the house, right? Or if I could, but it would be very expensive to do so. So getting locked in on location and then within that location, what are my must haves? What are my nice to haves? What are my, would be amazing to have, but, not going to be a deal breaker. Because when you're buying your first home, um, chances are, unless you're like rich, right, we're not going to get everything that we want. And so I would say that. And then I would say the mental game of that too. And that's for everybody listening is like, don't get discouraged. Don't get too in your head about it. Because everybody thinks that we buy based on logic, but we don't. We buy based on emotion. And then we justify our purchase with logic. And so it's very normal. The closer you get to actually buying a house, the more nervous and anxious that we get. And we have all these disruptive emotions that tell us, "Oh, we're in danger." And so when you know your budget and you know what your must-haves are, then all of that other stuff you can kind of tell your body like, hey, we're good, we're not in danger, everything's okay. So just staying locked in on that and not getting too discouraged, I think is important as well. But anything you can do to improve your financial position, whether that's saving more money, paying down credit card balances, if you had a credit issue, I know you don't. Those types of things are really, really important. Thanks for asking. Who's got next? Did I miss any, Nick? I don't think I missed any.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. I have a question. So me being a new first time home buyer, my question is this. Say if I find a house that's like $90,000 and they'll approve me for the lender approved me for maybe 130,000.
Hmm.
Can I take the extra money to use it to flip the inside of the house? Like, houses that's gutted out, like pre-gutted, they're selling
Hmm.
them in Baton Rouge, but the outside look good, but when you see the
Hmm.
inside is already gutted out and
Yeah.
I don't have any money. So if I was to buy that house, how would I be able to get the money to fix the inside?
That would be what's called a renovation loan. And so you have like FHA 203K and then you have Fannie and Freddie home style, but basically they're renovation loans. So
Uh-huh.
you can't get a regular loan and then, if it appraises for more because the lender bases everything on the purchase price or the appraised value, whichever one is lower. But a renovation loan is based on the cost that you're buying the house for plus the
Uh-huh.
appraised value of the completion of those things. And so what'll happen is when you do a renovation loan, which they're more expensive and they're really, really kind of a pain in the butt, but what'll happen is when you go through that process, you'll whoever the contractor is to do the work, they'll create a report to show all the work, and then that gets
Mhm.
submitted with the purchase to the appraiser, and they appraise the scope of the project, not just the house in its current condition. And so that's how you're able to get funding to like, do those types of things.
Okay, so it really would be a hassle to get a house that's
I don't
gutted.
I don't recommend it for first time home buyers because if you've ever worked with the contractor, they're really good at their job, but they're often not
Right.
amazing at paperwork. And so they have to
Right.
submit a lot of paperwork to keep the deal moving. And I've attempted to do three or four of them,
Yeah.
and every time it's been the contractor that's kind of slowed things down. So,
Yeah. And then if I do it myself, like if I was my own contractor, if I already have the people on my side to help me go in there and fix it up, then I just need the funds to do it. So that kind of take
well,
out the
that's
contractor.
the other piece of it is they don't allow you to self contract either.
Oh my God, like that's stupid because they got so many houses that's
Yep.
got potential
Yep.
and but I don't have the money to do it, but it have potential to get redone in the inside and look luxury,
Yep.
but y'all won't give me the funds to do it. That's stupid.
Conversations I have every day.
Yes, man. Cause I saw houses that's like 90,000, 80,000, even 65,000. It look horrible, but if you have the funds to go in there and redo it, it could be a potential house that you can
Right.
sell.
Yep. Yep. A lot of
Man.
people want to do it. And I mean, we all watch HGTV, right? So we all got, ideas and
Yes, I got so many ideas. I'm like, man, I tear that wall out. I could go back. I could put my own sheetrock up. I put my own walls up. I just need the electric man and the plumber. That's it.
yep. Yep. You're not alone.
Man,
Good question.
thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, Emily asks if she recommends paying off consumer debt. Um, Not closing it for sure, because like you said, um, so I think where a lot of that comes from, and I could be wrong in your case, like Dave Ramsey obviously talks a lot about that, and I think his advice is sound because it's rooted in behavior, not math. And I think most of the time, like personal finances is a behavior thing, not a math thing. But the one thing that he doesn't really articulate well in the terms of mortgage is that if you pay off all your debt and you tank your credit score, or you have no credit score, you get treated like you have bad credit versus like if you have good credit. So if you have a 700 and then you pay off all your debt and your score goes to zero, which takes a couple of years, or it goes down, they're going to base that loan off of a 580 credit score. And so you're going to pay more in points. You're going to pay more in interest. You know, if you, let's say you could get 5.875 because you have good credit, that interest rate's going to be 7.5% because they're going to base it on you having bad credit. So that's why we generally don't recommend it. Yes, there is manual underwriting. But you know, like especially in your case, it takes a couple of years for all that stuff to fall off anyways. So I would only advise paying it down, not closing it. And I wouldn't pay it down if it meant, uh, you know, if my goal was to buy a house and that was my definite goal, then I wouldn't spend my closing money on paying debt down unless I can't afford, you know, unless that's my issue. So, of course, everything's nuanced, but no, the better your credit, the better off you are when you buy a house. Who else? I'll just drop the link too while I'm waiting on the next question. If you have a question or you want help and maybe it's more sensitive and you don't want to talk about it in front of a group of people, great opportunity to book that call with me at talkwithbayou.com. You can just click the link in the chat box. And I'm happy to help. We do these calls all day. So anybody have another question? You guys are doing good tonight. I'm gonna play the Jeopardy music. Do, 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 do.
I do want to let people know I'm sorry. Also, when you're buying a house, you have to have good credit history. That's what I'm at the standstill at. I have the credit. My credit is at like a 710, but my credit card history is not at 12 months. So that's my standstill. I think people
Hmm.
should know that if you just starting out with a credit card or something, you have to build your credit card up first to make sure build your credit. You have to have a 12-month uh credit card history. That's what my lender is giving me a problem with right now.
We should talk about that because that isn't always the case, only if you're a manual. So we should talk about that, Patrice. Text me.
Thank you. I'm gonna call you. Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so somebody already asked the one question, can closing costs be rolled into the loan? We kind of talked about that. That is another cool thing about USDA, guys, if you go that route. If the house appraises for more than you purchased it for, you can roll that difference. So we literally just had one today. We have a client buying like a mobile home. She's buying it for 98. It appraised for 100. We were able to take that extra $2,000 and roll in some of her closing costs. So she's gonna come to the table with $0. Because she was already getting seller concessions. How much do I need to have saved before I start? That was another one, right? Again, depends on your needs and your situation and your circumstances. You can buy a house with no down payment. You can buy a house with low down payment. And so, you know, for those of you, and I think that's most of you in the room that have credit scores that are 640 or higher, you have a lot of options, right? You have the USDA, you have FHA, which is 3.5% down. I didn't ask this in the beginning, but if there is anyone in here that's a veteran or active duty military, best program, hands down, zero down, no PMI, very low interest rates. If you are a veteran, let me know because like it's a no brainer to buy a house if you're eligible for a VA loan. You can use gift funds for down payment, right? Somebody wants to gift you the money, you can do that. So those are some of the more common ones. Does anybody have any other questions about loan programs? Something that like you want to buy a house but you're not sure about this, like let me know that because if you keep asking questions, I'll stay on. But if not, we'll pop off of here because we're getting close to an hour on. So nothing.
I'll I'll jump on and ask one because we had this issue the other day, so maybe other people need to know this. How long do you need to have your closing cost money in your bank account before you can go ahead and close? Because someone the other day was they had cash, but they needed it to be in their
Under a
bank account before we
mattress.
could use it.
Yes.
So talk about that. Like, how long do you need to have it in your bank account before it's accessible before you can use it?
Yes. Yeah. It needs to be in your account for 60 days if it was cash. Mattress money is no good when you get a mortgage. It has to be in a verifiable account. And so that could be a savings account, that could be a checking account, that could be your 401k, it could be a CD. It just needs to be in some type of account. And the reason for that is because of the money laundering rules that exist in our space. You know, you could thank Pablo Escobar and his homies back in the 80s for buying homes and using that as a way to clean their money. So, yeah, other than that, it has to be a gift or something like that. So if you have been stacking cash and it's in a safe, then you should probably go ahead and deposit it into one of your accounts and be prepared to wait 60 days. Like I said, unless you had like a 401k or something, and then that could be used. So good question. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody being on. Jeremiah just said something. Hold on. Yeah, Jeremiah. So the thing with credit unions is, I mean, they're really good, but they're not so great for first-time home buyers, because they usually have a lot more limited options. Um, so, I mean, you can always talk to them, but it's so important, guys, that you get a second opinion, especially if you're dealing with a bank or a credit union. And the primary reason for that, I used to work at a bank, so I know how it goes. I don't just have something against them. They have extra requirements than like somebody like me does. So the way that our lenders work is they all just write whatever the guidelines say, but banks create additional obstacles over what the guidelines say. So, like your credit union might only do 20-year mortgages, right? And then that makes your payment higher. They may not offer some of the first time home buyer programs. Every credit union is different, but you may be able to get 55% debt to income, but they may have a hard cap at 45%. So they're going to cap your purchasing power by 10%. So there's all these little things like that that banks and credit unions will often have, and they're a lot slower. That's just the reality of it too. So I think for folks that they're buying their second or third home, they've got an 800 credit score, they got 20%, they can be great, they can be very competitive, but for the average first time home buyer, typically the credit union is not the way to go. So based on the many, I see you unmuted, Miss June, so I'll give you a second. I'm just gonna finish this thought. Based on the many deals that I have saved because somebody got approved at their credit union and it fell through. So, yes, ma'am, Miss June.
Oh, that was a mistake. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem. All right, guys. Well, I just want to remind y'all if you had questions or you want to get the game plan so you don't end up like Alex that we talked about tonight, you can go to talkwithbayou.com. You could book a call there. I dropped the link one more time in the chat. Otherwise, me and Nick are going to pop off and go enjoy our families. I hope you guys have a good night and would love to help you with any questions you have. See you guys later.